flickering emergency light painted the cell in sick shades of yellow. Adrian sat on the edge of his cot, the schematic Cyrus had given him spread across his knees. Its lines were a ghost in the gloom, a language he understood better than words. Every intersection, every conduit, every notation spoke to him. It wasn't just paper and ink. It was a problem, a complex equation of stress loads and weak points, of human patterns and structural flaws. His ribs throbbed with a dull, persistent ache, a souvenir from Razor's men. The memory of the boot connecting with his side was a cold stone in his gut. Despair had been a physical thing then, a choking weight. Cyrus had saved him, but the old man had given him more than just his life back. He'd given him a weapon.
This schematic was that weapon. His fingers, usually steady enough to draft the most complex cantilever bridge, trembled slightly as they traced a path. It led from the prison's core, through a series of maintenance tunnels, and terminated in a place marked L2, laundry, second level. There, a small, almost insignificant square marked with a crosshatch, an access vent. According to the drawing, it sat behind the main block of industrial dryers, a forgotten relic of an older ventilation system, a potential exit from the main floor. It could be a lie, a cruel joke, a trap. His mind, the engineer's mind, cataloged the possibilities. The drawing could be outdated. The vent could have been sealed with concrete decades ago. It could lead to a dead end.
Trust was a poison here, and he'd already drunk his fill. But what if it was real? The thought was a spark in the freezing darkness of his new reality. If one detail on this map was true, others might be too. If the map was a key, he had to test the first lock. He folded the paper with meticulous care, the crisp sounds loud in the oppressive silence. He tucked it back inside the hollowed-out spine of the book Cyrus had given him. He needed to get to the laundry. 2 days later, the summons came. His name was barked out at the morning count-off. Laundry duty. The air hit him like a physical blow, a wall of humid, chemical-laced heat that clung to his skin and filled his lungs. Giant, rumbling machines churned and sloshed, their rhythmic groans echoing off the tile and concrete.
Steam hissed from pipes snaking across the ceiling, coating every surface with a slick film of condensation. Inmates, stripped to their undershirts, hauled massive canvas bins filled with soiled jumpsuits and linens. Their faces were slick with sweat, their movements listless and mechanical. This wasn't a job. It was a punishment disguised as labor. Overseeing it all was Officer Riggs, a man built like a concrete piling, with a thick neck and a permanent sneer carved into his face. He leaned against a wall, baton swinging idly from his hand, his eyes sweeping the room with bored contempt. Adrian was assigned to the dryers, huge, roaring cylinders of heat. His job was simple: pull the scalding hot laundry from the washers, haul it to the dryers, and then fold it once it was done.
Mind-numbing, back-breaking work. He kept his head down. He worked. He became another cog in the miserable machine. But his eyes were always moving, scanning, calculating. He saw them. The main block of dryers, exactly where the schematic had placed them. They were ancient, behemoth machines, bolted to the floor. The wall behind them was stained and grimy, slick with years of accumulated moisture and lint. Getting a look would be impossible with Riggs watching. The guard's gaze lingered on anyone who paused for even a second. Adrian needed a distraction, not just a minor one, but something significant enough to pull Riggs completely out of his orbit. His engineer's brain, dormant for so long, began to stir. He wasn't just seeing laundry machines and pipes anymore.
He was seeing a system, a flawed, poorly maintained system. The steam pipes overhead were the key. He traced their paths, noting the joints, the shutoff wheels, the pressure gauges. One pipe in particular caught his eye. It fed the main water heaters for the washers. It was an old copper line, green with corrosion, and a pressure valve near a T-junction looked dangerously stressed. He saw a slight, almost imperceptible tremor in the pipe every time a new wash cycle began. He watched the needle on the corresponding pressure gauge. It would jump, settle, then jump again. An unstable feedback loop. The regulator was failing. An idea, cold and precise, formed in his mind. It was a risk, a huge one. Tampering with prison equipment was a guaranteed trip to the hole. But fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. He waited.
He loaded and unloaded, his muscles burning. He let the rhythm of the work become his cover. An hour passed, then another. His moment came when a fight broke out near the sorting tables. Two inmates were screaming at each other, posturing. Riggs lumbered over, eager for violence, his baton slapping against his palm. It was now or never. Adrian moved with a purpose that felt alien and yet deeply familiar. He grabbed a metal mop handle leaning against a bin. Casually, as if just moving it out of the way, he walked past the humming water heater. The pressure gauge was vibrating, the needle flickering in the red. Another cycle was about to kick in. He didn't look at the valve. He didn't want his gaze to give him away.
Acting like he was stretching a cramp in his back, he lifted the mop handle. The metal end connected with the pressure release valve stem. Not hard, just a sharp, calculated tap. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, a high-pitched scream of escaping steam erupted from the joint. It wasn't an explosion, but it was violent and loud, a geyser of hot mist blasting toward the ceiling. Alarms, shrill and insistent, began to shriek. Riggs whipped his head around, his face a mask of alarm and fury. The fight was instantly forgotten. What the hell was that?
Inmates backed away from the hissing pipe. Chaos rippled through the room. It was the perfect storm. While every eye, including Riggs's, was fixed on the screaming pipe, Adrian slipped behind the bank of dryers. The space was narrow, filthy, and suffocatingly hot. The roar of the machines was deafening here. He ran his hands along the grimy wall, his fingers searching. Cobwebs and filth caked his skin. He felt nothing but damp concrete. A spike of cold dread pierced his focus. Was it a lie? Was he going to be caught for nothing? His fingers brushed against it, a raised metal edge, almost flush with the wall. He scraped away a thick layer of grime, a rectangular outline, hinges seized with rust. It was real. The schematic was real. A wave of something powerful washed over him, clearing the fog of despair that had choked him since his conviction. It felt like breathing again after being held underwater. The gnawing emptiness in his chest was suddenly filled with something else.
Something cold and hard and sharp. Resolve. This place wasn't his tomb. Piece by piece. His gaze drifted past the chaos of the laundry, past the concrete walls, and saw the face of the man who put him here. The faceless client. The one who had stolen his life, his work, his name. It wasn't enough to escape. Escaping was for victims. He wasn't a victim anymore. No, he would do more. He would dismantle this entire corrupt system from the inside out. He would find the man who framed him, and he would tear his world down to the foundations. It was a vow, etched not in stone, but in the grime and concrete of his cage. A promise to himself, silent and absolute.
He slipped back out from behind the dryers, just as Riggs was bellowing for maintenance, his face red with fury. No one had noticed him. He was just another sweaty inmate, lost in the chaos he had created. Later that night, back in the oppressive quiet of his cell, he pulled out the schematic again. The lines on the page seemed different now, clearer. They were no longer a desperate hope, but the first draft of a war plan. His despair had been a useless, heavy thing. This new feeling, this cold, methodical anger, was fuel. It sharpened his senses, focused his mind. He studied every detail, his eyes tracing the paths he now knew were real. He ran his thumb along the crumpled edge of the paper, smoothing it out. That's when he saw it. At the very bottom of the page, tucked away in the corner, beneath a legend of symbols, was a faint scrawl of pencil. The handwriting was small, precise, almost invisible in the dim light. He had missed it completely before. He held the paper closer, angling it to catch the light from the corridor. Words began to emerge from the page, a whisper from the past. At the bottom of the schematic, in faint handwriting he didn't see before, is a message. The first key is in Blackwood's office. He doesn't know what it opens.